Over the last 12 months, something remarkable happened, and most people in the West barely noticed it. While headlines focused on inflation, war, political chaos, and economic anxiety, China quietly put together what may have been the strongest geopolitical year any country has had this century. Breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, record trade surpluses, dominance in electric vehicles, explosive advances in robotics, energy, infrastructure, and military technology. Week after week, China stacked wins. Not through hype, but through execution. And here's why this matters. In geopolitics, the future doesn't arrive suddenly. It reveals itself through momentum. And if you want to understand what's coming next in 2026 and beyond, you don't need predictions. You need evidence. Because 2025 didn't just show what China accomplished. It showed where the world is heading. So today, we're going to break down the 8 most important China stories from the past 12 months. Not as a recap, but as a roadmap. These are the developments that explain why China isn't just competing anymore. It's positioning itself to win the future. Number 1. China's AI breakthrough. One of the clearest signals of where China is heading came from artificial intelligence. For years, the United States was widely viewed as the uncontested leader in AI. The idea that China could seriously challenge that dominance was treated as something a decade away, if it happened at all. But that assumption collapsed almost overnight with the release of China's large language model, DeepSeek. On performance alone, DeepSeek shocked the industry. In many benchmarks, it matched and in some cases surpassed Western models like ChatGPT. But performance wasn't what truly rattled the system. What mattered was how it was built. DeepSeek was developed using a fraction of the budget of its Western competitors, roughly 1/10 the cost, and not by a Silicon Valley tech giant, but by a Chinese finance firm running the project almost as a side project. That single fact shattered one of the core assumptions behind America's AI boom. That only massive capital, endless compute, and billion-dollar burn rates could produce world-class AI. Markets reacted instantly. Billions were wiped off U.S. tech stocks as investors realized the AI narrative they had been sold might be fundamentally flawed. DeepSeek proved that efficiency, not excess, could win this race. Even more disruptive was DeepSeek's philosophy. Unlike closed Western systems locked behind paywalls, DeepSeek is open source. Anyone can use it, modify it, and build on top of it. For countries across the global south, this instantly made DeepSeek an affordable alternative to Western AI models controlled by a handful of corporations. And DeepSeek didn't arrive in isolation. It opened the floodgates. In the months that followed, Chinese models like Qwen and Moonshot gained real traction, with some even being adopted by major Western firms including Airbnb. An outcome that would have been unthinkable just a year earlier. The broader implication is hard to ignore. The United States has effectively tied much of its economic future to speculative AI returns, while China is focused on deployment, efficiency, and real-world use. And as we move deeper into 2026, the AI race no longer looks like America defending a lead. It looks like China is setting the pace. And with China setting the pace, I have a simple question for you. Have you prepared yourself for the disruption that AI is bringing to the world? Forbes just reported that workers who use AI earned 40% more income last year. I want to help you prepare for the future of AI. Everyone, this channel wouldn't be possible without our amazing sponsors. Outskill, the #1 AI training platform in the world, is offering all of you the chance to attend the best AI training for free this weekend. They're hosting a 2-day AI mastermind training live this Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on both days. And right now is the perfect moment to join because you can get in absolutely free for the next 48 hours. This 16-hour AI training has already built 10 million AI-first professionals worldwide and is rated 4.9 out of 5 on Trustpilot. People from marketing, finance, operations, product, and engineering join this training because it's not specific to any industry. It's now needed across every single one of them. During the training, you'll learn how to build AI agents that write, execute, and report for you. Automate workflows that run even while you sleep. Connect tools like Sheets, Notion, CRM, and email to create profitable systems. And use AI to save hours every week and gain an unfair advantage at work. Not just that, you'll also learn how to profit from these skills. People from this very training have launched AI-powered services that bring in $3,000 to $4,000 weekly just by applying the systems they're taught. And to kickstart your year, you'll also get premium lifetime bonuses like the AI Prompt Bible, the AI Profit Roadmap, and your personalized AI Toolkit Builder. Here's the most interesting part. When you sign up, you'll get access to the 2026 AI Survival Handbook, a comprehensive guide to the upcoming AI shifts in 2026 and the practical steps you can take to be prepared. But seats are limited. Use the link in the description to join and access the WhatsApp community to stay updated. Now let's get back to the remaining 7 stories on how China is winning 2026. Number 2. China's $1 trillion trade surplus. Another clear signal of where the global economy is heading came from trade. China recently crossed a historic threshold, a $1 trillion trade surplus with the rest of the world. That number alone is staggering. But what matters far more is how it was achieved and under what conditions. Just 2 decades ago, China was still overshadowed by the United States in global trade. Today, it is the single largest trading partner for most countries on Earth. That transformation didn't happen by chance. It was the result of long-term industrial planning, unmatched manufacturing depth, and an ability to adapt faster than any other major economy. But what makes this milestone truly remarkable is the environment in which it occurred. China didn't reach a $1 trillion surplus during a period of global cooperation or open markets. It did so under sustained pressure from the United States and Europe. Tariffs, sanctions, export controls, and non-stop political rhetoric about decoupling and reshoring supply chains. In theory, this pressure was supposed to weaken China's position in global trade. In reality, it exposed a far more uncomfortable truth. There are no real alternatives for vast categories of industrial goods, components, and intermediate inputs. Substitute supply chains simply don't exist at scale. When Western governments attempted to pull away, global markets responded by routing around them. China adjusted its trade flows, deepened ties with partners in BRICS and the broader global South, and more than offset any losses in the U.S. market. The result is unmistakable. China's role as the world's factory isn't shrinking, it's expanding. And the idea that the Chinese economy is on the verge of collapse has become increasingly difficult to sustain when the data points in the opposite direction. Looking ahead to 2026, this trade surplus isn't just a headline. It's a warning. The global economy has already voted with its feet, and attempts to isolate China are running headfirst into economic reality. Number 3. BYD beats Tesla in Europe. If you want to see what happens when Chinese companies are allowed to compete directly with Western brands, simply look at Europe. One of the most revealing developments over the past year has been the rise of BYD and the simultaneous decline of Tesla across European markets. This isn't a marginal shift, it's a decisive one. BYD sales in Europe have surged by more than 270% year-over-year, while Tesla sales across the continent have fallen sharply. In key markets, the collapse has been dramatic, double-digit declines nearly everywhere, including catastrophic drops in countries like France and Spain. What makes this outcome so significant is the context. BYD didn't enter Europe on equal footing. Its vehicles face layers of regulations, tariffs, and compliance costs designed explicitly to protect domestic and American automakers. In many cases, these policies add thousands of euros to the price of each vehicle. And yet, European consumers still chose BYD. That tells you everything you need to know about the underlying competitiveness of Chinese manufacturing. Product quality, pricing, reliability, and feature sets mattered more than brand loyalty or political pressure. When buyers were given a real choice, the results spoke for themselves. This dynamic has already played out across the global South, where Chinese EV makers have steadily displaced Japanese, European, and American brands in markets like Brazil and Southeast Asia. Europe was supposed to be different, a fortress of regulation and legacy advantage. Instead, it became proof that protection can slow competition, but it can't stop it. And this is where the story becomes forward-looking. Europe isn't the endgame. It's the test case. The real question is whether the same pattern reaches North America. Canada has openly discussed whether its 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles are sustainable long-term. If those barriers fall, even partially, it will represent an existential challenge for Tesla and the broader North American EV industry. Heading into 2026, the lesson from Europe is clear. Chinese companies don't need special treatment to win. They just need access. And once competition is allowed, the outcome is no longer theoretical. Number 4. China's soft power growth. One of the most underestimated shifts of the past year didn't happen in economics or technology. It happened in perception. For decades, China's image in the West was defined almost entirely by stereotypes: repression, pollution, low quality of life, and limited opportunity. That narrative persisted not because it was accurate, but because it went largely unchallenged. What changed wasn't China. It was exposure. The turning point came when millions of Western users suddenly found themselves interacting with Chinese platforms like Xiaohongshu during attempts to restrict or reshape Western social media access. The effort backfired. Instead of limiting visibility of China, it opened a window. What people saw directly contradicted years of messaging: affordable fresh food, efficient public services, modern cities, convenient daily life, a level of infrastructure and safety that felt increasingly absent in many Western countries. And because this content wasn't filtered through traditional media or political framing, it carried credibility. That shift accelerated when China expanded visa-free access to dozens of countries. The result was an explosion of Western creators traveling to China and documenting their experiences in real time. The reactions were strikingly consistent, shocked at how different reality was from the narrative they had been told for years. One of the most visible examples was iShowSpeed, the famous YouTuber who live-streamed his travels across China to massive audiences. Nothing was staged, nothing was censored, and that's exactly why it resonated. At the same time, Chinese consumer brands began breaking out globally. Companies like Pop Mart turned domestic products into international cultural phenomena, while Chinese automakers and tech brands began outperforming long-dominant Western names in unexpected categories. What makes this moment different from past soft power efforts is simple. It wasn't driven by messaging. It was driven by visibility. China didn't tell people what to think. It simply let people see what was happening on the ground. Heading into 2026, China's soft power isn't rising because it's being promoted. It's rising because the old narrative can no longer survive contact with reality. Number 5, China's robot revolution. Another signal that China's momentum is accelerating comes from robotics. And it's hard to overstate how transformative this is going to be. Early glimpses of China's humanoid robots went viral for their novelty: synchronized dances, fluid movements, and performances that looked more like science fiction than engineering. But focusing on spectacle misses the real story. What matters isn't that the robots can dance. It's how fast they're improving and what they're being built for. In less than a year, China's humanoid robots progressed from stiff, carefully choreographed demonstrations to fluid, adaptive systems capable of complex motion, balance, and coordination. That rate of improvement is the key takeaway. When breakthroughs compress into months instead of decades, it signals a technology that's about to scale. I saw this firsthand at the World AI Conference in Shanghai, where the focus wasn't entertainment at all. On the exhibition floor, robots were designed for very specific practical roles: assisting the elderly, supporting mobility, performing repetitive household tasks, and operating in controlled industrial environments. These weren't prototypes meant to impress investors. They were early versions of systems meant for deployment. And this is where China's advantage becomes clear. Robotics sits at the intersection of AI, manufacturing, supply chains, and energy, all areas where China already leads or is rapidly closing the gap. That allows new designs to move from concept to mass production far faster than anywhere else. The implications go far beyond convenience. As populations age and labor shortages worsen across much of the developed world, robotics becomes an economic necessity. China isn't using automation to replace workers. It's using it to expand productive capacity. Heading into 2026, the question is no longer whether humanoid robots will become part of everyday life, but who will deploy them at scale first. And based on the pace of progress, China isn't experimenting anymore. It's industrializing the future of labor. Number 6, China can still build and power the future. One of the clearest advantages China carries into 2026 isn't digital or abstract. It's physical. While much of the developed world struggles to maintain aging infrastructure and overloaded power grids, China continues to do something increasingly rare. It builds at scale and it powers what it builds. China has long been associated with ambitious infrastructure, from the Three Gorges Dam to the world's largest high-speed rail network. What's changed is that China is still accelerating even as other countries stall. In one of its least developed provinces, Guizhou, China recently completed the tallest bridge in the world, spanning a massive canyon and reducing what was once hours of driving to just minutes. The project took under 4 years and cost a fraction of what comparable infrastructure would require elsewhere. In many Western countries today, projects of this scale aren't delayed. They're never even attempted. But infrastructure alone is only half the story. The real constraint of the modern economy isn't concrete or steel. It's energy. As AI, electric vehicles, and advanced manufacturing drive electricity demand sharply upward, China has moved decisively to expand supply. While the United States faces mounting warnings about grid instability and long-term underinvestment, China's energy output has grown in parallel with demand. That build-out isn't limited to renewables. Although China remains the world's dominant producer of solar panels, wind turbines, and battery systems, it also includes breakthroughs in baseload power. China recently brought online the world's first operational thorium reactor, a technology theorized for decades in the West but never deployed at scale. Thorium reactors offer abundant fuel, reduced waste, and inherent safety advantages over traditional nuclear systems. At the same time, China has set new records in nuclear fusion research, moving one step closer to a viable fusion power source, effectively recreating the energy of a star on Earth. Taken together, infrastructure and energy form a single decisive advantage. China isn't just building roads, bridges, factories, and data centers. It's ensuring they can be powered reliably, cheaply, and at scale. Heading into 2026, this matters more than almost anything else. Economic growth, AI deployment, industrial automation, and national security all depend on physical capacity. And on that front, China isn't just catching up, it's pulling away. Number 7. Sanctions didn't stop China. They forced self-sufficiency. If artificial intelligence is the race, then advanced semiconductors are the fuel. And for years, the United States believed it held an unmatched advantage. Washington's strategy was simple: restrict China's access to the most advanced chips, slow its progress in AI, and the United States could maintain technological dominance. On paper, it made sense. But in reality, this plan has backfired. Not long ago, the prevailing view among analysts was that China lagged behind the United States by many years in cutting-edge chip development. But that narrative has collapsed. Even leaders inside the industry have begun to acknowledge it. Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, put it bluntly after visiting production facilities in both countries. Betting against China's ability to close the gap is a losing proposition. China's breakthrough didn't come from copying Western designs. It came from adapting around constraints. While Chinese chips may still trail NVIDIA's most advanced models on a chip-by-chip basis, China solved the problem at the system level. By using advanced stacking and clustering techniques, companies like Huawei have been able to combine multiple processors to achieve computing performance comparable to the world's most powerful AI systems. In other words, China may not have always had the single best chip, but it achieved the same results. And in computing, outcomes matter more than labels. The real inflection point came with confirmation that China has successfully developed its own domestic lithography machines, the long-missing link in semiconductor independence. For years, reliance on foreign lithography was the primary bottleneck holding China back. With that capability now emerging in-house, the logic of permanent technological containment has effectively been broken. What makes this shift so consequential is that it wasn't optional. U.S. export controls didn't give China a choice. They gave it a deadline. And China responded the way it often does under pressure, by mobilizing talent, capital, and industrial capacity at scale. This is not a story that ends with parity. It's a story that accelerates from here. Once self-sufficiency is achieved, iteration speeds up, costs fall, and dependence disappears. Heading into 2026, the semiconductor landscape is no longer about whether China can survive without Western chips. It's about whether the West can maintain its edge once China no longer needs permission to compete. Number 8. China plans the future while others argue about the present. All of the trends we've covered in today's video, from artificial intelligence, trade dominance, electric vehicles, robotics, infrastructure, energy, and semiconductor self-sufficiency, point to one deeper advantage that separates China from the West: long-term planning. China is now entering its 15th five-year plan, covering the period from 2026 to 2030. And China is not guessing about what comes next. It's formalizing a plan. This plan doesn't invent new priorities. It locks in the momentum that's already been built. At the center of this plan are three clear pillars. First, a decisive shift toward advanced industries. Semiconductors, AI, robotics, aerospace, and high-end manufacturing are no longer treated as emerging sectors. They're treated as strategic foundations of national power. Second, strategic self-reliance. After years of tariffs, sanctions, and export controls, China is institutionalizing what necessity already demanded, reducing exposure to hostile supply chains while strengthening domestic demand. This makes the Chinese economy more resilient and far harder to pressure from the outside. Third, energy and sustainability at scale. China's aggressive rollout of renewables, electric vehicles, and next-generation power systems isn't just about climate goals. It's about ensuring that growth, automation, and AI expansion are never constrained by energy shortages. What makes this plan so consequential is China's track record. Historically, China doesn't hit every target perfectly, but it hits enough of them, consistently enough, for long-term advantages to compound. That continuity allows investments in technology, infrastructure, and industry to reinforce each other over time, something that most Western political systems simply can't replicate. And this brings us to the bigger picture. When you step back and look at these 8 stories together, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. China isn't relying on a single breakthrough or a temporary advantage. It's advancing across every strategic domain at once: technology, energy, manufacturing, military power, infrastructure, and long-term planning. That's not luck. That's momentum. And that's why 2026 is going to matter so much. The trends that accelerated in 2025 are now compounding. The systems China built are beginning to reinforce each other. This doesn't mean that China is without challenges. But unlike much of the West, China is operating from a position of confidence, coordination, and long-term vision. If you want to understand where the world is heading, economically, technologically, and geopolitically, you simply need to follow these signals. And as we move deeper into 2026, Newsix Brief will be tracking exactly how these developments evolve, where they lead, and what they mean for the future of our world. What makes China's 2025 trajectory so significant is not any single achievement, but the compounding nature of simultaneous progress across so many domains. History shows us that when a nation advances in technology, energy, manufacturing, and infrastructure all at once, the resulting momentum becomes self-sustaining. Each advantage feeds the next. AI improvements accelerate robotics. Robotics expand manufacturing capacity. Manufacturing depth funds further research. Energy security ensures that no bottleneck interrupts the cycle. This is precisely the dynamic China has engineered, and it's the reason why observers who focus on individual data points, a single chip benchmark, one quarterly trade figure, or one viral video, consistently underestimate the scale of the shift underway. The world is not witnessing a sprint by China. It is witnessing a structural transformation, one measured not in months but in decades, and 2025 was the year that transformation became undeniable. Everyone, I want to thank you all for making it to this point in the video, and I want to thank you all for your incredible support. As always, we started Newsix Brief to discuss the most important geopolitical trends in the world and cover China, a country that will undoubtedly become a defining force for the future of our entire world. And as we've seen in the first months of 2026, countries from around the world are pivoting away from the United States and closer to China. For the 8 reasons we've laid out in today's video, you can clearly see why. Thank you all, as always, for your incredible support.